Stop. Stephen, not needed, but thank you, I appreciate it.
What are you talking about? This isn't for you. What? Get out of the way, he's coming!
What happens when a prince known for championing emotional awareness and inner healing completely loses control on live television? You're about to witness the unraveling of a royal narrative that's been carefully crafted for years. And the moment it all comes crashing down. This isn't just another interview gone wrong. This is a televised implosion, a brutal face-off between polished PR and unfiltered reality. And trust me, you don't want to miss it. If you're into bold truths, unexpected breakdowns, and public figures finally being held accountable, hit that subscribe button now. Because this story goes places no palace-approved script ever could. It all started on a seemingly ordinary evening at The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. The lights were bright, the audience was ready, and Prince Harry entered the studio with that familiar, polished demeanor. Tailored suit, controlled grin, hand wave. He walked out as if this was just another promo stop on his self-appointed redemption tour. But what neither he nor the audience realized was that this night would end with him storming off stage, humiliated and exposed in front of millions. Colbert, known for his clever charm and razor-sharp wit, greeted him with just enough sarcasm to be disarming. "Welcome back to The Late Show, Your Royal Highness," he said with a smile that barely masked the bite. Or should I say, "Your Royal Californianess?" The audience chuckled, but Harry didn't. Not really. His practiced smile twitched, just for a second. The first crack in what was supposed to be a smooth, controlled appearance. Trying to reset the tone, Harry replied, "Just Harry is fine, Stephen. I've been trying to move away from all that royal protocol nonsense." Colbert nodded politely, then immediately pushed the conversation where Harry didn't want it to go. "So you're here tonight to talk about your latest project, another documentary about your struggles with royal life. I have to ask, and I mean this with all due respect, how many times can you tell the same story?" That was the moment everything shifted. Harry stiffened. His smile vanished. "I think it's important to continue sharing my truth," he said, the word "my" landing heavy. "There are still so many misconceptions out there." "Your truth," Colbert echoed, leaning forward. "That's an interesting phrase. See, most people just call it the truth. But you've got your own version." The audience laughed, nervously. Harry did not. His jaw tightened. "I'm not sure what you're implying," he said sharply, "but everything I've shared has been honest and authentic." "I'm not implying anything," Colbert replied, still smiling. "I'm just curious about this idea of personal truth versus actual truth. For example, you've said many times you felt trapped in the royal family, that you had no choice but to leave. But didn't you actually have every choice in the world?" And just like that, the gloves were off. Harry shifted in his chair, the tension rising. "You clearly don't understand the pressures and constraints of royal life. The constant scrutiny, the lack of privacy, the inability to make your own decisions. But aren't you here right now, making a decision?" Colbert asked calmly. "Doing another interview, sharing more personal details about your family. Isn't that a choice?" Silence. Harry's face flushed. "That's completely different. I'm trying to set the record straight." Colbert didn't flinch. "Right. But what about your family's side? Your father's, your brothers? You've made some serious accusations. Don't they deserve a chance to defend themselves? Without you constantly airing your family's business in public?" "They've had plenty of chances," Harry snapped. "They chose to stay silent while I was being destroyed by the media." Colbert raised an eyebrow. "Destroyed?" "Harry, you've signed multi-million-dollar deals with Netflix and Spotify. You've written a best-selling book. You live in a mansion in California. If that's destruction, sign me up." Laughter rippled through the studio. But Harry wasn't laughing, not even close. "You don't know what you're talking about, Stephen. The emotional toll, the psychological damage." "I'm sure it was difficult," Colbert interrupted gently, his tone shifting. "But help me understand something. You've spoken extensively about the importance of therapy, of healing, and yet here you are, years later, still feuding with your family on television. When does the healing actually begin?" Harry's hands clenched into fists. "Healing requires accountability," he said, "from those who caused the harm." "So," Colbert pressed, Your family needs to publicly apologize before you can move on. They need to take responsibility, Harry said firmly. Colbert leaned back, his voice measured. I've interviewed people who've survived real trauma. War, abuse, systemic injustice, and they rarely spend years demanding apologies. They find ways to heal, to move forward, without destroying their relationships. This is different, Harry said defensively. You don't understand the unique circumstances. Help me understand then, Colbert said, because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're monetizing your family drama while presenting yourself as the victim. That sentence hit like a hammer. Harry's face turned white, then red, then somewhere between the two. How dare you suggest that I'm monetizing my trauma? Well, Colbert replied calmly, you did sign those lucrative deals based largely on sharing your family's private matters. That's the very definition of monetizing. At that, Harry stood up abruptly. His chair scraped across the stage. The audience gasped. Colbert remained seated. This interview is over, Harry said through gritted teeth. We're just getting started, Colbert replied. Harry stood, trembling with barely contained rage. You've been attacking me since the moment I sat down. I've been asking questions, Colbert said. That's what journalists do. Or, did you expect another softball interview where everyone just nods along to your narrative? Yo, tension was unbearable now. Even the camera crew seemed unsure whether to keep rolling. But Colbert didn't miss a beat. You say your family wronged you, he continued, but you've never explained exactly what they did. You speak in vague accusations. What specifically did they do that was so terrible? Harry opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked cornered, exposed. They refused to support me when I needed them most. How? Colbert asked. Give me one concrete example. They wouldn't defend me against the media attacks. Colbert nodded slowly. You mean they wouldn't issue a public statement? Every time a newspaper criticized you, Harry was flustered now, his arguments falling apart under pressure. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Colbert interrupted. Because from the outside, it looks like you wanted your family to validate every complaint while you publicly trashed them. That doesn't seem fair. Fair? Harry's voice cracked. You want to talk about fair? It wasn't fair that I had to walk behind my mother's coffin at 12. It wasn't fair that I was born into this spotlight. It wasn't fair that... You're absolutely right, Colbert said, cutting in. That wasn't fair. Losing your mother so young was a tragedy. But Harry, that was over 25 years ago. At what point do you take responsibility for your own life? Harry's expression changed. His face trembled with rage and heartbreak. Don't you dare minimize my trauma. I'm not, Colbert replied, his tone firm. I'm asking when you'll stop using it as an excuse for your behavior. Harry began pacing behind his chair like a caged animal. His polished exterior, the carefully managed media image, the controlled tone, was gone. In its place stood a man unraveling in real time, unable to hide the storm of emotions now. Taking over the studio. You have no idea what it's like to grow up in that environment, he growled. To have every move scrutinized. To have your family prioritize an institution over your well-being. You're right, Colbert said gently. I don't know what that's like, but I do know what it's like to have a complicated family. The difference is, I don't go on television every few months to demand apologies. I deal with it privately, like most people do. Harry spun around. Most people don't have their private lives plastered across tabloids. No, Colberty agreed. But you're the one who's been doing the plastering lately? Not them. There was a beat of silence. Colbert had said the quiet part out loud, and no one, not even Harry, could deny it. He had done the Netflix special. He had released the book. He had sat down with Oprah. Again, and again, and again. I'm telling my story, Harry said, his voice almost a whisper now. My truth. There it is again, Colbert said, his tone neutral but pointed. Your truth. But what about your wife's truth? Your kids' truth? Don't they deserve a chance to have a relationship with their family, privately? Or are you planning to drag them into this public feud too? Leave my family out of this? Harry said coldly. That's not what this is about, isn't it? Colbert asked. Because you seem to want privacy and respect for the family you've chosen, while burning down the dignity of the family you came from. That's when it happened. Harry slammed his fist on the desk. The mugs on the set jumped. One tipped and shattered on the floor. Gasps rippled through the audience. For a second, no one moved. "Enough," Harry hissed. "You're twisting my words." "I'm repeating your words," Colbert replied calmly. "You said you felt trapped, that you had no choice. You've spent years attacking your father and your brother. And I'm just asking why?" "The logic is simple," Harry spat. "They made my life miserable and expected me to just smile and act like everything was fine." Colbert leaned in. "So tell me, what exactly did your father do? What did your brother do?" Harry froze. His mouth opened, then closed again. He glanced toward the audience, maybe hoping for support, but all he found were eyes. Wide, stunned, waiting for an answer he couldn't seem to give. "They didn't understand me," he finally said. "They didn't support my choices." Colbert nodded. "Which choices? Because from what I've seen, they supported your military service. They supported your wedding. They celebrated your children, your charity work. So which choice didn't they support?" Harry paused again, visibly rattled. "My choice to leave." "Did they try to stop you?" "No, but they didn't make it easy." "Harry," Colbert said, his voice firm but fair. "Leaving the royal family is probably the most complex departure in modern history. Security, constitutional duties, financial logistics. Did you really think they'd just pack your bags and wish you good luck?" "I expected them to understand why I had to go," Harry muttered. "But did you explain it?" Colbert asked. "Or did you just announce it and expect them to figure it out?" Another long pause, another moment of silence that said everything. "You know what I think?" Colbert continued. "I think you made a hard decision for your family, and that's respectable. But instead of owning that decision, you've spent every day since trying to justify it by blaming the people you left behind." "That's not true," Harry said, but even he didn't sound convinced. "Isn't it?" Colbert asked, his voice quiet now, almost sad. "Because from the outside, it looks like you've confused being a victim with being victimized. Yes, bad things happen to you, but you've had every resource, every opportunity to grow beyond them. And instead, you've turned your pain into a performance." Harry's eyes were glassy now, blinking rapidly. "You're just another media vulture," he whispered, "picking at the bones of my family's pain." "No, Harry," Colbert said, barely above a whisper himself. "I'm someone finally asking the questions no one else will." The silence that followed was suffocating. The cameras stayed locked on Harry's face, flushed, trembling, filled with a cocktail of rage and shame. He was breathing hard, chest heaving, jaw clenched, and for a moment, just a moment, it looked like he might break down completely. Instead, he lashed out. "You think you're so clever?" he snapped, jabbing a finger toward Colbert. "You sit there in your little studio with your little jokes and think you know everything. You think you've got me all figured out?" "I think," Colbert replied gently, "you're a man who's confused anger with righteousness. And I think you're surrounded by people who are too scared to tell you the truth." "The truth?" Harry sneered. "You want the truth? My family destroyed my mother, and then they tried to destroy me." There it was, the nuclear claim. Colbert sat upright. The room chilled. "Your mother died in a car accident," he said, slowly, cautiously. "That was a tragedy, but it wasn't a conspiracy." "You don't know what you're talking about," Harry shouted. "You weren't there. You didn't see how they treated her, how they refused to protect her." "You mean, like, how you're protecting your family right now?" Colbert asked, his voice sharper now. "Because from where I'm sitting, you've revealed more private information about your family than any tabloid ever has." Harry opened his mouth. "What?" But no words came. The irony was too thick to cut through. "You've done books, interviews, documentaries," Colbert went on. "You've turned every chapter of your family drama into content. So who's really invading whose privacy?" That one landed. Harry's expression changed. Not rage, not defiance, but something more vulnerable, something dangerously close to realization. "You know what I think really happened?" Colbert continued, this time in a softer, almost compassionate tone. I think you were a little boy who lost his mother, and instead of being given space to truly heal, you were told to keep calm and carry on. That was wrong. That should never have happened. But somewhere along the line, you decided that staying hurt was more comfortable than actually healing. Shut up, Harry whispered, voice trembling. Just shut up. Colbert didn't flinch. Because being the victim means you never have to take responsibility. It means every mistake, every failed relationship, every bad decision. It's all someone else's fault. It means you can burn every bridge and still call yourself the one who was wronged. I said, shut up, Harry roared. In one furious motion, he swept his arm across the desk, sending the remaining mugs and props crashing to the floor. The loud shatter echoed across the studio like a gunshot. The audience gasped. A few people instinctively stood. Security began, moving toward the stage. Colbert raised a calm hand. It's okay, he said. He's just having a tantrum. A tantrum? Harry's voice was hoarse now, raw from yelling. You think this is a tantrum? What else would you call it? Colbert asked, voice steady. You're a 40-year-old man smashing things because someone asked you tough questions. Harry was shaking. From rage, from shame, maybe from the unbearable weight of being exposed. He didn't answer. You think I hate my family? He finally muttered, eyes blazing. I hate you. I hate all of you. I know you do, Colbert said quietly. And that's the tragedy here, Harry. You've let hate consume you. Hate for the media. Hate for your brother. Hate for anyone who doesn't. Mirror your pain back to you. But the person you really hate is yourself. Harry's face contorted. For a brief second, it looked like he might cry. His bottom lip trembled. His jaw twitched. There was a glimpse of something childlike. The terrified 12-year-old. Boy walking behind his mother's coffin, but then, like a mask slamming into place, it vanished. You don't know me, he spat. You don't know anything about me or my family? You're right, Colbert said. I only know what you've chosen to share. And based on that, I have to wonder, maybe the real issue isn't your family failing to understand you. Maybe it's you failing to understand them. Harry ripped off his microphone and threw it to the ground. This interview is over. Colbert stood for the first time, leveling his gaze. Don't walk out like this. We can still talk. You don't have to prove anything. Just be honest. But Harry was already turning away. His security team, stunned and scrambling, moved quickly to follow him as he stormed toward the stage exit. Every step he took echoed with finality, and then he stopped. At the edge of the stage, just before stepping into the shadows, he turned. Back one last time. The cameras were still rolling. The audience was still silent. You want to know the truth, Stephen? He said, his voice shaking with fury. The truth is, people like you will never understand people like me. You live in your bubble, your jokes, your comfort. You don't know what it's like to have your entire life dissected, to have your pain turned into entertainment. Colbert didn't hesitate. But Harry, you're the one turning it into entertainment. That single sentence hit harder than any insult, any accusation. It was a mirror held up in front of the prince with nowhere left to run. Harry stood frozen for just a second. Then, without another word, he walked off the stage. The heavy studio doors closed behind him. The silence he left behind was deafening. Colbert turned to the camera, visibly shaken but composed. Well, folks, he said with a long breath, that's not how we plan to end tonight's show. As we come back from break, Colbert continued, eyes heavy with the weight of what just happened, we'll have some music, maybe to help us all process what we just witnessed. The screen faded to black for a commercial break, but the moment would live on. Not just as another awkward celebrity interview, but as one of the most raw, unfiltered, and damning public unravelings of a modern public figure in recent memory. Social media exploded. Clips of the meltdown went viral within hours. Headlines called it "The Night the Duke Lost His Crown," "Harry's Final Undoing," and "Colbert Delivers Royal Reality Check." Viewers weren't just shocked, they were conflicted. Some felt pity, others felt vindicated. But almost everyone agreed, this wasn't the face of healing. This was a man clinging to pain like a shield. And here's the haunting truth. Prince Harry, the same man who spent years advocating for mental health awareness, had just demonstrated that awareness is nothing without accountability. You can go to therapy, you can talk about trauma, you can launch foundations and documentaries. But if you never take responsibility, if you never stop blaming the world, then healing never begins. What made this interview different was that, for once, someone pushed back. No scripted questions, no flattering praise, just hard truths delivered with uncomfortable calm. And Harry, a man accustomed to controlled environments and curated sympathy, wasn't ready. This wasn't about attacking him. It wasn't even about criticizing his choices. It was about questioning the narrative that has become his entire brand. The eternal victim, the wounded royal, the misunderstood rebel. But the moment Stephen Colbert asked, "When does the healing begin?" everything changed, because the real question wasn't whether Harry had suffered. He clearly had. The real question was, how long can you let suffering define your identity before it turns into something darker? Revenge, resentment, and ultimately, isolation. Because that's what we witnessed in those final moments. A man more, isolated than ever, not just from his family, but from himself. His emotions, unprocessed. His rage, unchecked. His story, repeated so often it's lost its power. What began as a noble attempt to speak his truth had turned into a public performance of pain that no longer inspired empathy, only exhaustion. And maybe that's the greatest tragedy of all, because when someone refuses to stop seeing themselves as the victim, eventually the world stops seeing them as one too. So now, the question turns to you, the viewer. Was Colbert too harsh? Or was this the accountability moment Prince Harry desperately needed but never expected? Was this cruelty or clarity? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this conversation isn't over. And if you want more unfiltered breakdowns of media moments, explosive celebrity confrontations, and stories the mainstream won't touch, make sure you subscribe now and turn on notifications. Because next time, the truth might hit even harder.